from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day, 2017 could go down in the record books as a costly one.
We're seeing more billion-dollar weather events than we've ever seen.
Why it doesn't take as big of a natural disaster today to create hefty losses for farmers. Charred hills in Northern California are scars from a recent wildfire.
Less than 1% of the vineyards burned.
But your $100 bottles of wine just got even more expensive. In agribusiness, searching for the silver lining in wheat.
It might take a while, but I think it's getting less bearish.
And tradition rolls up to the Trump White House.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. As you prepare to give thanks this week, 2017 proved that it had its fair share of challenges. And as billion-dollar disasters mount, one ag lender projects the ag losses from severe weather could set a record in 2017. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says during the first 9 months of 2017, the U.S. experienced 15 separate billion-dollar weather disasters. That ties 2011 for the most ever during the first 9 months. Now, 2017's natural disaster plot included 2 floods, a freeze, 7 severe storms, 3 hurricanes, a drought, and wildfire. Now, many of those also leaving its mark on U.S. agriculture. Farmer Mac says since the 1980s, severe storms have left the biggest scars. And check out this map. It's really the Gulf Coast and the eastern seaboard seeing the biggest financial losses since then. And if it seems like agriculture is seeing mounting disaster, you're right. In the latest edition of their quarterly report, The Feed, Farmer Mac says that's because it doesn't take as large of a weather event to create a billion-dollar disaster. Farmer Mac economists say in 2004, a storm would need to damage over 2 million acres to generate $1 billion in losses. In 2005, that had dropped to 1.5 million acres, and by 2012, it took less than 1 million damaged acres to equate to $1 billion loss. Jackson Takish says that's due to the increase in input costs.
We're seeing more billion-dollar weather events than we've ever seen just because the cost of production is higher and farming is just more efficient. So an acre today produces way more revenue than it did 20 years ago because prices changed and yield has changed. And that means if you destroy that acre of production, that's going to cost more money. So you're seeing more and more devastating hailstorms, tornadoes, those types of things in the Midwest, where 30 years ago that really wasn't the case.
Well, October was also a challenging month in California. That's after a wildfire ripped through the northern portion of the state. But a month later, those in California's wine country are trying not only to rebuild the few structures that were lost, but regain tourists who were timid to travel back, uncertain of the aftermath that unfolded after the fire cleared. California's wine country comes with an open invitation each year.
The train is running, the wine is flowing, and we're on the way.
But this year, charred hills remind visitors of a devastating wildfire in California's famed wine country that hit this fall. The fatal fire spanned 115,000 miles during peak tourist season. But now that the flames have ceased, vintners calculate losses, thankful that most of the state's wine grapes were spared.
Less than 1% of the vineyards burned. Less than 1% of the winemaking capacity burned.
But those acres are home to some of California's most prized grapes.
The interesting thing we're looking at now and what people should recognize is that the grapes that hadn't yet been harvested tended to be the highest priced Cabernet Sauvignons, the kind of wines that you and I would like to wish we could drink.
Sumner says those grapes produce the kind of wine that many aspire to consume, selling for an average of $100 per bottle. And with such a high caliber wine, winemakers can't sacrifice quality by using lower grade grapes.
Some of those Cabernet that were still in the fields were damaged with something called smoke taint. Now you can remove smoke taint, but you can't remove it without removing some of the characteristics that make those grapes $700 a ton and those wines $100 a bottle.
Sumner says that means the 2017 Cabernet Sauvignons will be a smaller crop, making it even more expensive in the years ahead.
So your left-hand glass is our Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc.
Napa and Sonoma counties attract tourists from around the world, but those tourists are sparse this year.
It was really more the impact that the fires had on people's psyche, in the sense that they thought the Napa Valley was burning, so they canceled their trips. And that's really been the most impact for us.
Now local wineries are making a push to bring tourism back, trying to entice those who still want to take in Northern California's beauty while indulging in popular wines.
Those people that lost their homes still need their incomes. And so tourism is a way to help those fire victims. And nobody should be afraid to come back and visit and see the beauty that surrounds us here.
Well, it's those stories of resiliency that continue to shine throughout agriculture after life-altering events such as this. Thursday on Ag Day, join us for our annual Harvest of Thanks special. 2017 could set a record for billion-dollar disasters, but it's what happens during the rebuilding process that is often left untold.
It's a Texas way. You know, you're friendly, you help people, you do what you can for anybody, no matter if they're your friend, your neighbor, a stranger, or anything else.
The whole family's safe. We're all good. It's a mess, but we're gonna fix it.
It's after the fire and after the floods when there was triumph in the heartland. We'll share those stories with you right here Thanksgiving morning. Well, even drought-stricken areas like South Dakota are giving thanks this week. That's as yields in some portions of the state turned out better than expected. It's a common theme across the country this year. Yields are turning out better than expected. South Dakota producer Brad Greenway lives right on the edge of the drought, which impacted crops in the state this year. To his surprise, the crops turned out better than he anticipated.
In July, I was buying corn because I didn't think that I would have enough to feed my livestock. And we got just a little bit of a rain, and it's amazing to me the yields we got. I harvested the best corn crop I've ever harvested in the time that I've been farming. And it was getting just enough moisture to carry it through. You don't have to go very far, and people weren't so fortunate.
But it's those better than expected yields that could force some farmers to change their tax plans this year. Farm CPA Paul Neefer says considering tax changes on the table, farmers should consider pushing some of those payments into the new year.
You know, they really should be looking at taking advantage of some deferred payment contracts where they're actually selling the grain now, you know, because they don't have storage. They're selling the grain, but roll that cash delivery or the cash that they get into 2018. That gives an option. If rates go down, we'll still tax it in 18. If rates stay the same and we got some offsetting deductions in 17, we'll bring it back into 17. That's always a good recommendation.
But not every farmer is seeing bountiful bushels. In Kansas, sorghum farmers say yields are just average this year.
We had a really prolonged drought and a lot of heat in the second half of the summer, so our yields were right around APH levels, above or a little below crop insurance levels, so not a fantastic crop.
Now 86% of Kansas's sorghum is out of the field. That's according to USDA's latest crop progress report. That's 6 points behind average. Well, we have a good mix of crops and cattle from the field for today's crop comments. Mike Hoffman has details. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ty. And our first picture is of heifered cows in Central Lake, Michigan. The owner says overall it's been a fairly wet fall with over 8 inches of rain in October alone. That means he's working a little harder to make sure the calves are comfortable. And in Colorado, farmers are still working to get the crop out of the field. Ryan is located in Haxton, Colorado. He says harvest has been a little slow at times this year, but they expect to finish up next week. USDA's latest crop progress report showed Colorado corn harvest is 86% complete. That trails average by 8 points. And taking a look at the root zone moisture, we'll take a closer look at that coming up, but you can see some wet areas that we've been talking about across places still trying to harvest. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. Ag Day, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
Wheat acreage was at a 100-year low this year in the U.S. What can turn that crop bullish? We'll discuss next in Agribusiness. Plus, cranberries are a must-have on many Thanksgiving tables, but abundant supplies are hurting farm prices. We'll tell you about a plan to increase consumption.
Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
Receive a free trial of the Daily Grain Plan newsletter from Roach Ag Marketing. Text Roach to 31313. Start your subscription today by texting Roach to 31313.
As you prepare to give thanks this holiday week, wheat is often a symbol of harvest and the breadbasket of this country. So it's only fitting Clinton Griffiths talks wheat this day before Thanksgiving. He joins us now from the Agribusiness Desk.
Joe Vakovic, Standard Grain, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Joe, let's talk about the wheat market. We know winter wheat's been planted. What have the markets done while all that work's been happening?
The markets have acted very poorly. Winter wheat futures are back to their normal selves. We've got a lot of carry in the market. Funds are very heavily short. I think there are some potentially friendly undertones here at work. First thing, I think wheat acreage, all wheat acreage in the U.S. is going to be down again after posting, what, a 108-year low last year. Right. So that's a potentially friendly factor. We're seeing some better demand for higher protein wheat. So I think the cash market and some of the cash premiums have improved a little bit. As far as USDA goes, projections for carryout, projections for stocks to use ratios, getting just a little bit less bearish moving forward here. So is this going to turn into a bull market overnight? No, I don't think so. But I think it's a situation that is becoming perhaps a little bit less bearish. And if we were to get some help from, say, the corn market or maybe the currency market, I think that you could be in for much, much better prices down the road.
Is there any scenario that you're watching where you see us switch some of these corn acres with the prices where it is back to wheat, or is that story not told yet?
It's not looking that way to me. There were farmers in hard red winter wheat country in the southern plains that had good luck with corn this year. They had good luck with soybeans in some instances, and the wheat just isn't paying the bills. They had one little opportunity in June and July when we saw that big rally in the spring wheat market to do some marketing. I think you had July 18 Kansas City up over $6 for a moment in time. But on the whole, the prices don't work. It doesn't work margin-wise. So I think that if we get that reduced acreage, throw any little weather hiccup in, maybe a currency thing, funds are pretty heavily short. You could turn this thing into something better here. It might take a while, but I think it's getting less bearish.
Less bearish, maybe something better. I think there's some wheat farmers that would probably take that. Thanks, Joe.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438. Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Welcome back. Well, Mike, we're just a day away from Thanksgiving.
I know.
Do you have
Can't believe it.
Any big plans?
You know what? I actually work on Thanksgiving, but that's okay. My family's meeting on Sunday in Indianapolis, so that'll be nice.
I am in charge of cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
Ooh.
And my theory is when in doubt or when something doesn't taste right, just add butter.
Well, it sounds good on Thanksgiving.
It works.
It does work.
Well,
all right.
How's weather shaping?
Well, let's check out, first of all, the root zone moisture map, and you can see the wet areas. And of course, those are some of those same places that we've been talking about trying to finish up harvest. And that goes all the way from the southern Great Lakes, northern Indiana, back across northern Illinois, right through the I-80 corridor into Nebraska, down into Colorado, wet areas up into Montana as well. Let's take a look at the maps as we head through this week. We have an area of low pressure moving up the eastern seaboard. That'll be a decent rain producer, but right along the coast. This front is having some rain and snow showers, nothing big with that, a few lake effect snow showers behind it. Then we have two systems out west. The first one's not going to be a big weather producer. The second one is going to be a very slow mover and eventually will be a fairly big weather producer farther east. We'll be watching this area of low pressure in the Gulf, but it's going to take 24 hours and then it'll start to affect you in Florida as it comes along this front. High pressure dominating from the eastern Great Lakes all the way down into Texas as we head through tonight. Into tomorrow, a little bit of snow, central northern Great Lakes as this system moves on through. And there's that system coming across the state of Florida. Lots of rain as we head through Thanksgiving in Florida itself. But for the most part, very few travel problems across the country. There'll be a little snow flying in the eastern Great Lakes, and there'll be obviously some problems in the Pacific Northwest. A lot of that's rain, but mountain snow. You folks are used to that this time of the year. Precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, not a lot. Hit and miss parts of the southeast. The majority is in western Washington. adding in the next 36 hours. We'll add some more in the northern Rockies, Pacific Northwest, add a little bit in the Great Lakes, but we will definitely add some more in Florida. Snowfall, we're not adding any in Florida, don't worry about that. A little bit over the Great Lakes, we'll add just a little bit more, none of that major for travel issues, and most of that really not major out west either. It's fairly warm even into the higher elevations. There are the afternoon temperatures, pretty cold across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley with highs in the 30s and 40s. On the cool but comfortable side down south. Now you're talking 30s and 40s tonight though, all the way down toward the Gulf of Mexico, but it starts to warm up in the western plains and a little bit into the western Great Lakes as we head through tomorrow afternoon. There's the jet stream. Basically, we have a trough in the east. That moves away. Another piece of energy replaces it. That moves away. Another one comes in over the weekend. That moves away. And then we have another one diving in for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. That's the pattern we've gotten ourselves into, which means colder than normal for the eastern two-thirds of the country a good chunk of the time, but you will have some warm-ups in between. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Billings, Montana, mostly cloudy and rather mild today, high temperature of 60 degrees. Shreveport, Louisiana, a good deal of sunshine and chilly with a high of 61. And finally, taking a look at Easton, Pennsylvania, breezy with clouds and then sunshine, high of 52.
Up next, produce shippers get a break from a new transportation rule. We'll explain what it means. And it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas at the White House. Details when we head in the country.
Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it. So corn crops give the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
Produce and livestock haulers are getting a short reprieve from a new federal rule that requires the use of an electronic logging device, or ELD, on commercial tractor trailers. The Department of Transportation issued a 90-day waiver. The rule was set to go into effect on December 18th. ELDs replace the old handwritten logs that truckers use to track their hours. Many in the ag lobby say the federal rule doesn't take into account the unique challenges of hauling livestock or fresh goods.
If you are transporting goods, like let's say produce, if it's caught in traffic, weather, if you're a loading dock and you're delayed and your hours is up, your 500 miles is up and your hours are up, and your produce has to sit alongside the road, it's going to spoil. So who's that cost going to go to? It's going to be the end to the consumer.
The hours of service requirements does not change for commercial truckers. However, shippers believe the less flexible and more precise enforcement of hours can add delivery costs. Cranberries might be on your Thanksgiving table tomorrow, but in the future, the excess crop could end up as fertilizer. According to a report from Bloomberg News, American cranberry processors are waiting for government approval that would allow them to turn excess fruit into fertilizer. The program would be the first of its kind for cranberries. Bloomberg says inventories are so plentiful, there was enough to cover consumption even before farmers started gathering this year's crop. Ocean Spray Cranberry says the federal order could help put supply and demand back in balance, which would also help prices for growers. Well, we celebrate Thanksgiving tomorrow, but at the White House, Christmas deliveries are already showing up. In the Country is next.
Ag Day, brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit Kubota.com today.
Well, even though tomorrow is a very important holiday for many of us, the Christmas season has already started. Let's be honest, it started for some people around the 4th of July. In Washington, First Lady Melania Trump and son Barron received the official White House Christmas tree as it was delivered to the front door. It's a 19.5-foot balsam fir from Wisconsin. The tree comes from a tree farm in central Wisconsin called Silent Night Evergreens. The owners, Jim and Diane Chapman, presented the tree on behalf of the National Christmas Tree Association. That organization represents farmers who grow real Christmas trees. The tree will stand in the Blue Room, where it will become the holiday showpiece for a president who has vowed to put Christmas back in the center of the winter holidays. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. Be sure to join us tomorrow morning for a harvest of thanks. On behalf of the agDay family, as well as my husband and kids, I hope you have a happy and blessed Thanksgiving.
agDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy duty pickups.